Hello world, welcome to RCAM. I'm your host Ryan and thank you for tuning in today. So in today's episode, we are going to explore what kind of relationship Christians should have with politics. There are some people who would say that Christians should absolutely not be involved in politics. And then on the other hand, we have people who hold the view that Christians actually have an obligation to engage in the political arena. So we're going to unpack that today. So I just want to make something pretty clear. So back in 2016, there was a period where I was very vocal about my political leanings. However, the church that I worked for at the time, they wanted their staff to refrain from engaging in politics, particularly on social media. So I complied and I started to keep my political opinions to myself. However, when I stopped working for that church, I was no longer under any obligation to uphold their policy. So I started to share my opinions on matters that I believe are true and I also believe impact the church. So this has often had me in the center of heated debates both online and in person with different individuals, some of them Christians, some of them non-Christians. And in some of this discourse, I've been labeled divisive. I've been told that my opinions are not based on biblical truth and that I'm fighting for earthly ideologies. So I had to step back and ask myself a question. Is anything that I'm being told true? And I would actually have to agree. When somebody says what I'm doing is divisive, I mean, yeah, it actually is. It is divisive. But this is what truth does. Truth is divisive. So if I am claiming to be in the truth, I am saying that you are not in the truth. Truth is the dividing line, and some people are going to find themselves on the other end of that line. And I happen to believe that the gospel is truth, and all truth permeates from it. So I do not believe that Christians should be silent in political matters, simply because politics are divisive. Truth doesn't stop at the door of politics. There are biblical truths that often find themselves at the intersection of politics. For example, abortion is a biblical issue that impacts the church. Abortion also happens to be something that is staunchly debated among political parties. Christians, however, have a moral obligation to speak truth and fight for justice. Remaining silent on issues like abortion is not an option for a Bible-believing Christian. If we are to fight, and if we are to stand for the least of these, then we also need to fight against laws that allow these heinous acts to continue. We need to fight against laws like the Reproductive Health Care Act, but we're not going to ever be able to do so if we don't have a voice in politics. And there are some of you watching who may really believe, no, it doesn't matter what you say, Ryan. We are not to engage in politics. That this might be Satan's dominion, and we should have no involvement. But I want to ask you a question. Would you make that same argument when Christians use politics as a means to abolish the slave trade? My guess is no. No, you would actually support fighting against the slave trade because the slave trade was evil. And we as Christians have a responsibility to stand for those who can't stand for themselves. So let me ask you another question. So I think most of us can agree that sex trafficking is a horrific crime against humanity. So would you not advocate for laws and policies that fight the sex trafficking industry, that fight for children who are being abused and victimized by traffickers? I'm assuming you would fight for laws that go against traffickers. I hope you would, because that's the right thing to do. Now, we as Christians, I believe, should be involved in politics. You know, if you're not already aware of this by now, I am very vocal about politics. And I know that it can cause division, but the truth is always going to cause division. Now, hear me when I say this. I'm not saying that we should go out and campaign for a politician. You're not going to see me campaigning for any politician, but I will use my voice and my platform to raise awareness on issues that I believe impact the church, and I also believe to be true. I'm going to speak what I believe is true. Now, I think part of the reason that things are so divisive right now is because Christians have conceded ground to the enemy and have remained silent on issues that actually matter because they are afraid of the online internet mob. But there are always going to be mobs. There are always going to want to be people who want to crucify you for speaking what is true. Nevertheless, we are to speak truth, no matter what that costs us. Satan does not own politics. We as Christians are ambassadors of the kingdom of God and are to bring his kingdom everywhere that we go. This means some of us are called directly into the political arena. I think how we transform this world is by representing Christ in every fabric of society, in our laws, in our politics, in movies, in TV, in media, and in the culture at large. Christian voices are needed now more than ever. We are to go into all the world and preach the gospel. Politicians don't get left behind. They need the gospel too. And Christians need to be in that scope of life to make a difference for the kingdom. I really believe this. And man, I imagine what would happen if our representatives in office actually caught a hold of the gospel and started weaving the gospel truth into our laws and policies. I believe we would see a radical transformation within the halls of Congress and even the White House. Unfortunately, this cannot be a reality as long as Christians stay out of politics and concede ground to the enemy. We are not to hide our lights, but we are to let our lights shine for all the world to see. This is part of the reason that I started this show to begin with. I will never forget the pride our New York representatives displayed when they passed a law that allowed babies up until the point of birth to be murdered in the womb without impunity. That was the moment when I decided we cannot stay silent anymore. We cannot remain silent as the enemy has his way in politics. We cannot stay silent as the enemy has his way in Hollywood, news, and the culture. We need to stand up for those who cannot stand for themselves. And we need to be voices of reason in an age that is evil. Love does not sit idly by while evil has its way in our culture. Love stands in direct opposition to evil, just as Jesus did. Jesus was killed because he testified that the works of the world were evil. And when we stand for what is true, we are going to be standing against what is evil. As for me, I'm not going to shy away from politics because it's divisive or because people don't like what I have to say. At the end of the day, I'm not here to please the world. I'm here to as an ambassador of the King, and I will fight from the pulpit, but I will also fight from the virtual public square. This has not always been an easy thing for me to do. Some of the views that I share have cost me friends, real friends, people that I legitimately care about, not random strangers on the internet. And it's easy to be discouraged when people you legitimately care about start walking away from you because they don't like what you have to say. But I have a responsibility to what I believe is true. You know, there was a period back in May where I actually started to doubt whether I was doing the right thing. and I was doubting if I should continue making content and if this was worth the stress that came with it. But something happened. In the midst of my doubts, I received a message from a friend of mine that I hadn't spoken to in years, and he went on to share with me that he loved what I was doing, and although he didn't agree with everything I had to say, he agreed with a lot of it and encouraged me to keep it up, and I have. And he shared this with me at a time where I needed to know that what I was doing wasn't pointless. And since then, I've had several people encourage me to keep going. And I believe God has affirmed that I am doing exactly what I need to do, and I'm exactly where I need to be, and that is enough for me. So I encourage you guys to continue to use your voices. Do not be afraid of saying something about what's going on in the world or something political because it's divisive. If it's true, it doesn't matter. Say it. Truth is what matters. And I believe the gospel is truth, and I believe we have a responsibility to speak the truth and be a light in a world that has gone dark. So I want to thank you guys for tuning in. I appreciate you guys taking the time to watch this episode. I encourage you to like, share, and comment. That helps me out a lot. And you can find this content on all social media platforms. So we're on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. I'll post this stuff to Parler also. So definitely check it out. Have a blessed day. Deuces.